Hi, everyone. We're here with the Reverend Michelle Buhite, who is the minister at the UU Church of Amherst in Williamsville, New York. And we're talking about an innovative new program today that they've created called Villages. So, Reverend Buhite, can you tell us what is the Villages program?
So the Villages is basically a way for our people to connect and to offer each other pastoral care and sort of take the responsibility of tending and caring for one another. And so, you know, you've heard the adage, it takes a village. And so that came up in conversation at a faith development retreat. And it was like, what would that look like if we created villages here? And it was really intentional to make them multi-generational, somewhat geographic, so that people could connect. We had no idea that we would be doing most of our connecting online. So at the time, it was like, well, you know, they could do ride shares and they could get together and have a picnic. And so we wanted to make it as intuitive for folks as we could. And what started out as sort of this simple conversation about what if suddenly took on a lot more urgency and meaning this spring. And so we launched.
So this was an idea that was created pre-COVID-19.
Yes. And it was one of those ideas that felt so right. And everyone in the room was like, oh, that is definitely what we need to do. But who had the time? And now with COVID-19, we suddenly found both a greater need and time to actually implement it, because it was a little time heavy at the beginning to, you know, do the sorting and contacting and all of that.
Okay, so how exactly does it work?
So we identified potential leaders in those certain geographical areas, members of the church, people who'd been involved, who like a challenge and like a little extra responsibility, and who love people, because that's really key to being one of the village leaders, which we fondly call the village people. So the first thing we did was we after we sorted out how the congregation would be divided up, then we contacted everybody in the active participation directory and let them know that this was coming, that they had been sorted into a village, sent the list of who else was in their village, and said, you know, your village person, your leader will be contacting you. And the leaders all just jumped right on it, you know, called people, sent notes, and now they've been meeting, most of them by Zoom, because we're still not in a place in Western New York where people can gather. And, you know, in some cases, telephone calls. There were some people who didn't want to participate necessarily in group activities, but said, you know, how about if you just call me once a week and check in? And so we have this amazing web of not only communication, but love and caring that is weaving itself. It is so cool to watch this unfold.
And what's the congregation reaction been? Obviously positive in some ways, because you just mentioned that, but has there been any specific comments or issues?
One comment early on was, thank you for doing this, for caring about us at a level beyond what our theology might be and what we think about the world and some of our intellectual conversations. So a lot of gratitude. And in preparation for our time today, I went back through the list to look at how we had divided villages up by family unit. Each village has approximately 15 units. So whether that is one person or a family, there are 15 units. And so I was going through and seeing who all was participating and who had said, oh, not right now. And we have, at the moment, about a 40% participation rate. And that includes members and friends. We went with the folks who were active. And I think that is kind of amazing, and understandable. People are hungry for connection, and to be able to see their friends. How did we live without Zoom? And so this gives them a small group that they can connect with. But for something that is brand new, and really we've been really upfront about, we're making this up. So as you learn, let us know how it's going, and we can change and shift gears. But to have 40% of the congregation involved is amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. So what do you personally like best about this setup, about the Villages program?
So when we had to go to virtual presence, the thing that literally kept me up nights was to look at how many people were tuning in, like, to our worship services, and finding out, what committees or groups were still meeting, which at the beginning was almost nobody. And the thing that kept me up at night was, who's missing? Who is feeling alone and abandoned and just completely at sea? And with this village system, I know that people are connecting, and I'm learning more, about what's going on in their lives, because they'll mention what's going on in their village setting, and their village leader gets permission to share with me. And so there's a whole new level of communication, and more of a flow to church life. And I'm just plain sleeping better, knowing that people are not being left out.
So if a congregation wanted to try to replicate this, how would you recommend they start?
Contact me directly. I live by the hit by a bus theory, so I always create paperwork so that something is replicable, just in case I'm hit by a bus. And so I've got the methodology written out of what we did. And again, we're making it up intuitively. So I'm hoping that as other congregations try this, that it creates a feedback loop, and we can say, oh, this works really great in a congregation this size, but this one in this region says, and so I'm hoping that it will sort of grow and take on a life of its own.
Is this a lot like small group ministry or covenant groups?
It has the possibility of providing some of that, but it is paradoxically slightly shallower and much deeper, because it is not driven by a topic or a task of some kind. It is simply people coming together for the sole reason of connecting. It is weaving people together in such a different way. We're not just talking about what we think about a thing. We're talking to one another and sharing at a very intimate level. And so many of the congregations that I have been involved with, whether it was as a congregant or just friends of friends of friends, an ongoing yearning has been for that connection, that intimacy, and yet that's tempered by, but can I really trust you? And something is shifting with what we're doing with the villages, where people are risking being vulnerable and risking to trust one another, which is what church is all about for me.
Okay. And one final question I have for you is, how are you integrating new members I mean, you may not be getting new members right now in this current situation, but how would you integrate new members into this system?
So that was one of the early ideas of the beauty of this kind of a system, because it's not asking anything. We're not asking anyone to join a committee or sign up for coffee treats or whatever our usual ways of trying to plug people in and get involved. It's just, hi, by virtue of where you live, you have this group of potential friends instantly, and we're going to help you connect. And you can choose not to. That's fine. And so I think it will be an easier onboarding for new people, to have placed it to instantly fit in, not because they think the same way or have children in the same age group or any of those things, but just, hi, you're a human that lives in my neighborhood and I'd like to get to know you. How awesome.
Is there anything else you'd like to share you think is important for someone to know?
I guess what I would want people to know is that the startup of it looks daunting. It, depending on the size of your congregation and the systems you already have in place, it can feel like you're starting from scratch with putting, names in boxes, and don't let that hold you back. Just the thought of that is what kept us from moving forward 6 months ago. But it is so worth it. And I don't know, it has so much potential for deepening a congregation, any group of people. I mean, this system, I think, could be put into any gathered group, whether it's a community choir or a gardening club or whatever. This has, I guess, that intuitive, connective piece that I think people are hungry for.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing with us, and we really appreciate it. And people, if want to know more, they can contact you.
Yes.
And the information will be on our website. And thanks a lot for joining me.
Thank you, Beth.